Yo. Thank y'all for joining us on this edition of the Logistics Lounge. We got an incredible young man lined up for y'all today, Mr. Jamie Hagan with Hell Bent Xpress. We're going to talk about what we always talk about, and that's whatever the hell we want to talk about. So sit back, relax, pop a top, and enjoy the lounge. Mr. Ham.
What up, Pedro? I'm going to be real with you, man. It's Sunday, and people, when you're watching it right now, it's not going to be Sunday, but this is weird because this is our first recorded show, but we appreciate our guest, Mr. Jamie Hagan, for putting up with our nonsense. So if this is a weird show to you guys, just leave some stuff in the comments section. We'll probably be watching it when we drop it live. So yeah, that's how my day's going. I'm a little shook up over here, but how about yourself, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Been a good weekend so far, man. Did some washed and detailed the cars yesterday after a month of not being able to because of the storms. And then guess what happened?
We're getting storms right now. Oh, rain?
Yeah, guess what happened? Yeah, fucking rained in hell. Like 12 hours after I washed my damn cars, man. Like son of a bitch.
That's how I always wash my car. I wash my car like once a month, maybe. That's a hard maybe. Because that always happens, man. Especially now. Like I was in one of those spaces and the dude was like, man, I'm so fucking mad right now. I just spent $130 to get my truck washed, and like the front of it's just splattered in cicadas now. And I was like, "What'd you expect, man?" Yeah, I don't know. It's such a. I'll just go to the quarter wash though, and just rub it down with some wax and whatnot, and do it my own. Because I'm tired of paying $20 for a wash, and then it doesn't even wash my fucking vehicle.
I have an entire wall locker, a military wall locker that is only for car detailing and washing stuff. Dude, I've got fucking pressure, everything you could ever want, dude, to wash in the car. I have everything, and I do mean
there's something therapeutic about washing your car, you know.
It is. I mean, I even got the little brushes, dude, to like get in all the crevices, and it took me 5 hours yesterday to wash a detail.
God,
fucking nuts.
Are you getting in there? That'd be a good side hustle for you, doing some car detailing.
Bro, I couldn't because other people's filth would piss me off. I'm like, how would you let your car get this dirty, you nasty human being?
I'm actually going to do this for free because I'm pissed off at you.
This is ridiculous, man. So, just chilling today, man. Going to go and help somebody out with their gate this afternoon, and that's it. And then I'm going to try to do some work tomorrow. I don't know about you. I don't think I'm going to get any work done because ain't nobody going to be at work. But
I'm not doing anything. I don't have anything to do. What am I going to call an office that nobody's going to be in?
I know. I didn't have any freight pick. I had 2 loads picking up Friday, and both of them are dropping tomorrow because they're both for Andrew. And Andrew just said, he's like, I'll come in just so I can unload the truck. So I was like,
yeah, we should just post up some fake loads and fuck with double brokers all day.
Oh man, we should fuck with that, bro. Yeah, we should do that.
That'd be a good segment.
That is a good idea, man. That's really fun. Let's go ahead, get some sponsor love out the way, get Mr. Hagan on the show here. Really excited to talk to him. I know you have a few times on X. I've heard him on X, have heard people talk about him. So I'm excited to actually get to have him one-on-one, man, and hear everything that is Mr. Jamie Hagan. But before that, what else is everything is when you get to put more money in your pocket. And if you factor invoices and you're in any business and you need that money, Shoreline Capital is the best way to go.
I swear,
I know,
every single song that we use, our intro, this one, and Egos, they're stuck in my head forever, dude. Like, I keep myself dancing sometimes.
No, I do too, man. I do too. Always. As soon as the chorus come up, I'll just be sitting rocking in my seat, man. What else going to have you dancing is when you're able to keep track of your freight and your assets in real time, not have to worry about tracking that old way with them cell phones and not having cell signal and not being able to know where things are at. Gigo is going to help you with that problem.
Dude,
right there,
so
bro.
dark over here.
Right there, dude. Just in those two sponsor things, I had 3 edits I need to do. Man, that Shoreline one fucked me all up. Hunter, I'm gonna edit all this out too, obviously, but man, I feel like we're doing this for the first time again. I do not know why. This is so fucking weird, man. This is so weird, dude.
Isn't it? Well, cool. Let's bring Jamie in. Let's get to this part of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Hagan. And now we roll the intro video. Jamie, we didn't make a video for you, but there'll be a video whenever it comes on.
Do a clip reel.
Sure. That out too. Well, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for hopping on with us, chopping it out. How's your day been?
I had nothing better to do on a Sunday on Memorial Weekend. Hey kids, just wait. I'll be there in a minute.
Oh man, that's fucking hilarious.
We're actually getting ready for a big storm to come through, so just kind of waiting for it to hit.
The storm?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hitting us right now. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, and it is black outside. It's crazy. It's not too good. Yeah. But yeah, man. Once again, appreciate you coming on. As you can see, Rob and I are kind of lost in doing this recording thing, but it'll be nice, prim and proper once we get it rolling. But so for those of you that don't know Jamie Hagan, Jamie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into being Mac loving and getting into Hell Bent Xpress?
Well, I was born to a poor black family in the South. You wouldn't know it, right? I believe this is a sequel to Jerk. Maybe you've seen that movie. You guys look wrong, but
no, I know The Jerk. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I started in trucking. My dad was a truck driver. My uncle was a truck driver. So it's kind of in the blood. Started riding with my dad when I was in diapers. So I've literally been in a truck my entire life. So obviously the first thing you do when you become of age is you run out and get your CDL and become a truck driver. That's just a logical next step when you've spent your life in a truck, right? So at 50 years old, I've got 32 years of driving experience. Technically 34. In South Dakota, you didn't need a CDL in the 80s to drive in-state. Crazy fact. So I got my CDL when I turned 18, but I already had 2 years of experience. So crazy, right? When everyone talks about that new thing going on where they're going to allow 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and I'm like, yeah, that's not new. It's just new now. It was back in the day, though, people were doing it left and right, Of course, it's different when you're driving back roads in the, South Dakota with, no population. So, but yeah, driving my whole life. Owned a business when I was younger. No one would hire me when I was 21. I worked for my dad when I was a young man and couldn't make a go with him. You know how it is when you're working with family. Everybody's got their opinion on what you should do and nobody wants to listen to the young guy, right? So my pride led me to go run out and buy a truck. And, within 3 years, I was out of business. Was a company driver for, 12 years, and then bought my own truck back in 2010. It's been a while. So, and then eventually just decided I wanted to know what it was like to own a fleet besides just being an owner operator. And last 6 years now, I've owned Hell Bent Xpress, where, we have 12 trucks on the road right now, one owner operator leased to us. We do van and open deck. So good stuff.
That's awesome, man. That is wild, though, that you could drive just, interstate without your CDL back in the day. That kind of reminds me of, like, here in Tennessee, my stepdad, I remember him telling me that his family had a farm, but he was driving the truck, at like 12, 13 years old. And all you'd have to do is have, like, some feed or hay in the back, and you can just say you're working. But that's crazy, though.
Yeah. Well,
also
when I
started
driving, I was actually 8, driving the farm truck. So yeah, and then my dad would push in the clutch. He'd get me in the seat, and then he'd let the clutch out, and he'd just be like, "Okay, now just drive 5 miles an hour to the farm. It's only 2 miles. You'll be okay." Those are the good old days.
That's awesome. Yeah, my dad used to let me drive, and I was.
I can only imagine how many transmissions that truck went through.
Yeah, that's
Jamie
killer.
never tried to shift gears. He said.
So what got you into Mack trucks, man? Did your family grow up driving Macks?
No. That truck that I grew up on was an old Dodge. Back when they had to import them from, what Dad say, that came from Cuba. But, that was an old single axle farm truck. And then International was very popular in the Midwest, and they were cheap. So that's what I grew up on, was driving Internationals. I got my first Mack in 2015. Prior to that, I had a few Volvos. And what I liked about Mack trucks was that they had the same powertrain as Volvo. But you got it in a Class 8 truck. So or that American Class 8 feel, you know what I mean? Like, it still looked American. The dash was still a big dash with a lot of buttons. It wasn't that little tiny dash that Volvo has. So, but it's the same great technology, just wrapped in more of a North American feel. That's why I gravitated towards them. And they got a really amazing dealership network, something most people don't think about when they buy a truck. Dealership network. And with Mack being around for 125 years, they've got this country like coated from coast to coast with dealerships. So
yeah, Mack makes they make an incredible truck. I have a friend of mine that I used to drive with. He is a Mack fanatic. He actually he's from the Northeast, and he started driving.
Not be a fanatic if you're from the Northeast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he likes to say he got out of there as soon as he could, and then he moved down to Texas, and now he lives in North Carolina in the mountains since he retired. But he first truck he ever drove was a Mack locally up there in the Northeast, and he is a Mack fanatic. I've never had the opportunity to drive one. I do agree with you. They have this all-American look to them, and they're I would say them and Peterbilt are one of the two brands. They have really stayed with what they started with, which is that bulky American, heavy duty, get the job done, dependability. But I would have to say I like Macks. I wish I could drive one. I love the way they look, especially the new Anthems, man. Those are some nice looking trucks.
They really stick out, I think, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased, but I feel like they stick out from the aerodynamic crowd. It's an aerodynamic truck. People don't think so because of the way their lines are, but they're actually very aerodynamic. So,
well, the first question I want to ask you, because before we get into why you put yourself as chief fuel efficiency master, I'm hoping that there's
never let me write my own title. You had talked about you driving without a CDL and at an early age back when you were younger, and then you mentioned the thing now about the 18-year-olds, and there's actually, it was last week in the news, I can't remember where it's from, but there's actually a high school that is trying to petition the state to let 17-year-olds drive, because they actually have a truck school there at the high school trying to teach these youngsters to get in the industry. But
I think I may know your feelings on it, but I'm not sure. Me personally, I'm for it because I believe that in some things, age doesn't matter, and it doesn't pertain to skill level and the ability to do a skill. So that's my first question. How do you feel about that resurgence of having the younger crowd get their CDLs to be able to run, possibly interstate?
100% needed. I think it's a great idea. So like I said, I had to buy my own truck to get a job. The company I ended up leasing to, Smithway Motor Express, doesn't exist anymore. It's now Western Express. Bum, 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 bum. That's the, they had 2,000 trucks when I first leased to them, but they wouldn't hire me as a company driver. Does that make any sense? But if I was an owner operator at 21, they would hire me. But they wanted someone, you had to be 21 or older, but you had to have 2 years experience. And I said, well, I've got 2 years experience. Well, they're not over the road, like interstate. And I'm like, well, you can't go interstate. So like their rules are really weird, like you got caught in this catch-22, but when I had my own truck, they were like, oh, that's fine. So to me, I was dying to get on the road. I didn't want a different job. I didn't want to go to work for, a factory or, whatever. I wanted to be over the road. I wanted to be like my dad and my uncles. I'd already driven all over the country. So it was a non-factor to me. So to me, when people say this stuff, I'm like, well, obviously you can't pump out 300 kids doing this, but there's probably a select dozen that would be really good at it, And if you teach them right from the get-go, now they've got years to hone their craft within their state, whether it be in a Class B or even a Class A truck that, some of these states like South Dakota, I mean, it's 700, almost 700 miles wide. Like you can do a lot of trucking in 700 miles, like it takes you a day to get across from one side of South Dakota to the other. And same way with Texas. You cross Texas, it takes you over a day. Same way with Montana. So why can't people in these states, it's not like being in Connecticut. You know what I mean? Like within 2 hours, you're across the state. But why not give them something, give them an opportunity, give them some way to hone the crafts. That way, when they get to the right age and they can cross the states, they've got experience. And they've already got the bug. They want to drive the rest of their life. There's people like me out there that exist. It's not for everybody, but we do exist that want to drive their entire life. So give them a chance.
I knew I was going to like you, Hunter. All that shit you talked about, Jamie. I don't believe it, Jamie. He told me all that.
Hey, he's on camera. He's on camera. All right, wait till getting behind camera. It's a different story.
Some bullshit.
Yeah, right.
No, it's bull snot, man. It's bull snot.
Bull snot. Yeah, it's bull snot. You're one of the few drivers. Period. I can't even say of the older or the newer crowd that is for that. Me personally, I'm for it. I drove 10.5 years. I brought my sons on the road with me, and I used that opportunity while I was out there to teach them things, teach them things about bridge heights and bridge weights and, just all these different things, how to slide fifth wheels and do all this stuff. None of them said they wanted to be drivers, but I was like, hey, if you're going to be out here, I'm going to show you something. You never know in life when you could use it. And, my 22-year-old now, he'd been with me in the truck when he was 16, and all of my kids, man, they could spot stuff wrong with trucks out there. Be like, oh, Dad, look at that guy. You can see the way that tire's hopping back there. I bet he's got a bad tire. These were young kids, and I agree with you. I think if you get anyone involved in something, you start teaching them, even without the mindset of this is what I want this child to do, or even with the child they don't want to do, they can learn and start early and get there and be in a good place.
Well, driving a truck, a large truck, is a great thing to have no matter, you don't have to drive trucks, say, for a living and for it to not to be useful. I got a good friend of mine who's a forklift driver, and they also have him go spot trucks because he has a CDL. So every once in a while he runs outside, gets in the shag truck, goes spots a trailer for him real quick. But that's not what he does. But he has a CDL. Like, to me, it's just it just opens up all these different doors and opportunities. Why wouldn't you? Just to fight something like this makes no sense. Like, and they're training them. It's not like they're just handing kids CDLs like they do to immigrants that come to this country that don't get any training at all. They just hand them a CDL and they say, here you go. I'm pro-immigrant, by the way. My grandfather came from Norway. The guy couldn't speak English, either could my grandma barely spoke English as well. I'm 50%, well, I'm closer to 80% Norwegian, but whatever. I had 2 grandparents straight off the boat. So I'm pro-immigrant, but I'm pro-training. Like, I grew up with my dad. I never took a driving test in my life. I've never taken a driving test. I took a written test by the state of South Dakota, and because I had already been driving with experience, they just handed me my CDL. So I wouldn't even know what a driving test looks like. But I had my father there to show me how to do all these things, teaching me all these little tips and tricks and how to do things and training. That's all it comes down to, is training, like spending time with a mentor. And it shouldn't matter how old you are, how old, young, old, color, creed, anything. None of that should matter. Your status in this country, as long as you're here with a visa, you know what I mean? And can speak English and can read English. We go into Canada, quite a bit. So going up into Quebec, all them signs turn to French. Guess who can't speak French? Right here. Can't speak it. Can't say it, can't speak it.
Nope.
Can't read the signs. I had to get directions from an English-speaking person. Okay, now you want to go to Fusasi Street, and I'm like, okay, can you spell that? Because I'm looking for that word. I can read that part of it. And thank the Lord for GPS now, because it takes me right there. I don't have to read the street signs. But I mean, all I keep thinking about is, like, if I was somebody who I'm 6 weeks in this country and I can't speak English, oh my God, what a disaster that must be. Like, these poor people, I feel bad for them. And but I'm just a huge proponent of training. Just train the shit out of people, in my opinion. Just ridiculous amounts of training. I don't care how many hoops you got to jump through just to get it, but get it.
Muscle memory. That's where you want to be with any skill in your life. And I never knew what that was till I joined. Till I joined.
Wasn't it sharpening the blade, man? Because you got old cats, in the brokerage side of the industry that are still out there taking courses, getting new certificates, like always honing that skill, just to get yourself better. And shit, if you can turn a truck on a dime, then you're one of the few out there, especially like with your open deck stuff, man. You can make a lot of money out here if you know how to drive a truck. A lot of people just sit behind a wheel. That's all they want to do. But if you get out there and want to bust your ass, and move some stuff around, then by all means. But yeah, training, I definitely agree with that. Like, there's anybody that's saying that, we don't need young drivers out here. Well, who the hell is going to drive?
Right.
We're going to make them wait till they're my age, 30 years old, and then you get a truck. Like, all right.
Hell Bent Xpress has got a really good crew of older guys, but we got 3 young guys. All ironically enough, 28 years old. So in my world, 28 is young. So I think that's, trying to mentor them. They're very fresh. They're very new to the industry. The one guy's dad was a truck driver, so he took to it like a duck to water. The other guy never drove a truck a day in his life. He was a broker, and that's how him and I had fostered our relationship. He worked for Coyote. And he's like, man, he goes, I think I'd rather drive the truck versus being behind a desk. He's like, what would it take for me to get, to work for you? And I said, well, go to a training school, get trained up. I said, I can't hire you. My insurance being a small carrier, I can't hire people without experience. So I said, you're going to have to go to a company that can hire you, get your experience, come to me, and then let's go from there. So after a year of doing that, he was able to come to us. And now, every day we're on the phone talking about different things, and he's learning every day, the different nuances of being on the road. It's more than just driving a truck, being on the road. There's a whole time management thing and the magic behind the logbook. You gotta, even with an electronic logbook, there's magic to be, had. So you gotta teach these guys these things, and they just need the right person to help them in that situation. And you gotta have these young guys because, even me at 50, what have I got? 15, 20 years left in me. Most of our guys are near 60. So what do we got? A decade out of those guys? So there needs to be somebody that comes up. I mean, I can't believe we're actually fighting over this. Like I just felt like drivers would be kosher with this idea, like young kids. I mean,
that's one thing that's kind of blown my mind is how many older drivers really gatekeep. You know, they just do not want to share any of their information. It's like, oh, should I get my CDL? They're like, no, you don't want to be in this industry right now. And it's
right.
like, why?
Right, crazy industry. You don't want none of part of it.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's not for everybody, man. I can tell right now. Like,
no, it's not. It's a hardcore industry.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You can't put your toe in the water in trucking. No matter which side of transportation you are on, there's no putting your toe in. You either all in, all day, all weekend, all the time, or it's nothing. You know what I mean?
I also feel, you know, Jamie, with the direction the country is going as far as the cost of a formal education, you know, the cost of shit period out there, you know. I use myself an example. I drove a truck and I wanted to get out of the truck, and you touched on this earlier too. Everyone's like, oh, well, you need a college degree. And I was like, okay. So I went and got my college degree while I was driving a truck. And then I went and did that. And like, oh, but now you need 2 years experience. Well, I can't get the experience if you don't fucking hire me. Like, I already went and did the first thing. Now you need the second thing. But, you know, it's like I was fortunate the Army paid for that. But, you know, I mean, dude, to even just get an associate's in general studies, you know, you're talking probably 20 grand on the low side at a community college, maybe a little more. And then it's, you know, another several years before you actually start making a decent income. And trucking, I could say it still is one of those things. When I got in, you were crap until you hit a year. Once you hit a year, you could start making certain demands. Once you hit 2 years, like the further and further you got into it, the more valued you were because of your experience. And if you were a safe driver, even more so. And, you know, so I really think that the trucking industry is a really good direction for today's generation to go and to start getting our youth today back into those service fields. And yes, I would consider trucking a service field because you are servicing the nation's supply chain, and they're the only ones that can do that specific job function.
Yeah. Well, it's like just the word trucker. I don't know, man. For some reason, people just have a bad connotation about, you know, what it is to be a truck driver. And like you said, Jamie, over here, you know, like you got your CDL, man, and you're out there on the road and, you know, you're doing the thing. That can lead to so many avenues in this industry. Like, it's insane. You know, you can go and own your own company. You can go into warehousing, you know, you can do training, like whatever it may be, or do like Rob and get into the brokerage side of the game. Like, there are limitless opportunities. And like, that's the best experience you can truly have, you know, like, especially if, you know, in Rob's position, you know, you can call up and know the problems that people have, you know, these shippers, these, you know, receivers, like what goes on the road. And I mean, it's just, it's crazy to like think that people just are trying to shy away from that. But, you know, it's that one, what is it? The Nebraska Transportation Club or something up there. They're going around with a truck driving simulator, and there's a little QR code in there. You scan it and it gives these kids an opportunity to get a free scholarship. And it sends them, you know, information on truck, you know, training, driving school, and, you know, how to get their CDL. And it's pretty interesting. You know, it's good to see movements like that. Because once again, like, who's going to drive the truck? Because I don't believe in autonomous trucks. I know Rob doesn't. I don't know if you do, Jamie, but I don't think that's ever going to
great idea
on a grand scale.
You know what I mean? Autonomous trucks are like communism. You know, communists, when you write it on paper, it sounds great, doesn't it? You're like, oh, this is the way we should do it. But then when you try to execute it, people don't want it. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be paid the exact same. Well, I don't want to be you know, you decided I was going to be a truck driver and this guy's going to work in an office. We all make the same money because that's what communism's like. But you know what I mean? Like, they're two different jobs and technicalities and all this. So capitalism is our best system. But regardless, I think that it's just ridiculous that we can embrace the youth. I really can. I don't know. You're getting me all excited over here.
You know, Jamie, I'll say and make this final. I guess my final point on this is, and this is I'm 39, but I always say I'm 39, but I identify as a 55-year-old because that's how I feel mentally, and like the experience I have because my mom was a freaking baby boomer. You know what I mean? So, but I think it's the work ethic and the lack thereof that a lot of these newer generations, the ones now that my kids are in and the later part of the millennials, people don't see that in them. They all kind of want to take the easy way out. They all want to be media influencers, or they want to come up with some magic product that they're just going to put on the internet and it's going to sell millions of overnight. Like that's the thing. They don't want to put that effort. They don't want to find a way to try to do something that may be out of their comfort zone. And I feel like, even me personally, I do have a little bit of that pull with, could they really do it? Like some of these kids can't even fucking make toast. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are we going to trust some of these kids behind the wheel of these things? But, I think that's really also
but
where
for everybody. That's covering the whole generation with a blanket. We can't say that. I mean, there are kids that aren't very intelligent, but there were kids when I was when I was a young man, there were people I wouldn't have put behind the wheel of a truck at my age. They weren't very bright. There was a gal in my school that couldn't figure out high beams on her car. After a year, she goes, I don't think my car has that feature. And I'm like, what? And I literally flipped them forward for her. And she's like, oh my gosh, So, I mean, there's plenty of people out there that, by the way, that gal's a lawyer right now.
Oh, God.
So, I think we spent a lot of time, us guys that worked our tails off, telling our children that they should get a nice desk job and a nice high-paying job. We all forgot that who was going to take our shoes when we got older. Now, I have 5 daughters, and I have tried up and down and through the middle to try to talk them into getting into transportation. They don't want no part of it because I spent my whole life behind the wheel, and they just don't like the sacrifice level, which is fine. Like I said, transportation, there's no big toe in transportation. It's the whole body goes in. You go, head first into it. So some people aren't, designed for that. But I mean, I had a guy today fixing our air conditioning unit, and he has his nephew with him, and he's a young man. And I'm like, this kid's making $50 an hour fixing air conditionings. I'm like, why didn't I do that? I mean, but too late for me now, probably. But that's what I'm getting at. Like today's youth, we got to get them involved in the trades again. Like we really do. And like you said, these gatekeeper guys have got to just stop. You know what is really exciting? Wheel Jam in Huron, South Dakota is coming up. It's a truck show. I've been to this truck show a few times. It is a fantastic show. There's a lot of young kids in that show. Now, granted, South Dakota doesn't have a lot of industry. South Dakota is very agricultural driven. So there's a lot of truck driving kids, and these guys, they're just passionate about their Peterbilts and their long hood trucks. You can't help, the youth being a little dull, a little, getting stupid for, fancy trucks and chrome, right? But there's a lot of them, and it's really kind of exciting to see that, that this youth is kind of embracing big trucks again, kind of the way when I was a kid in the 80s and the 70s, we just idolized truckers back then. The 90s and 2000s, obviously things kind of fell apart on us, but I think it's starting to come back. You know what I mean? Like seeing these young guys walk around these truck shows and get really excited about trucks. That's, gives us all hope, doesn't it? Even that this company, this high school is even wanting this. I think that's hopeful. That gets me excited. Cheers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. So very with you. My oldest son, he still kind of thinking about to go to college. Right now he's in car sales. Believe it or not, he fell into that after high school, just like needed a job and wanted full-time money and fell into it, and he loves it. He's good at it. So yeah, I agree with you. We kind of, like you said, the past generations really drove that. Get a desk job, go to college, become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, something. And we didn't realize that, hey, we're promoting one side of things because we want our children in the future, our grandchildren, to have a better life. But we're forgetting that it's also people like us who were in the service industry, the transportation world, that those folks matter too. You can have all the doctors and lawyers you want in the world, but if there ain't nobody to manufacture and deliver the paper and the medical supplies, none of that's really going to matter in the end. And so I do. I think there's I like that we're moving back down. I'm with you. I applaud that high school for wanting to do that and to get these young people involved in this industry at a young age. And to touch you, even if they never use it. You know, I mean, like you said, it's good to have that skill. I mean, I use fence building as an example. I was 18 when I got my first job building fences. The very first day, I'll never forget this, and I never forget this guy. His name was Clint. This motherfucker used to go through a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper a day. I swear to you, middle of summer, Texas, slamming Dr. Pepper's not a bit of water. Anyway, very first job we ever went on. We walked up there, we looked at it, and we walked back truck. He said, I'm going to tell you guys something right now. He said, this will be a skill you will be able to use for the rest of your life. No one will ever be able to take this away from you. And you just think about that while you're working here and you listen to what people have to say. And I'll tell you, it's right. Here it is 21 years later, and I, to this day, build fences as a side hustle, you know? And so it is. Skills are a good thing to learn, and a lot of people have gotten away from just learning the very most minute things. Not that driving a truck is one of those.
Well, trucking's not all that difficult, really, if you think about it. It's just, you know, like driving a car, except bigger. When you were talking about autonomous trucks, it's great to run an autonomous truck down south on the same road, doing the same thing, picking up at the same place. They can do that. They can replicate that real easy. Come up my part of the world up here in South Dakota or, you know, into Canada where things are crazy. Half the time the roads aren't even painted. So
there's no marks. Everybody just follows everybody.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, the road isn't even painted. Every once in a while, all of a sudden, like, you know, they're doing road construction. South Dakota is infamous by 20 miles of gravel. All of a sudden you're just going along like, oh, we decided to tear the road out this year and leave it gravel for 20 miles. What the hell's that machine going to do then? Is it going to just drive in the ditch? It doesn't know where things are at. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably going to think it's off road.
Yeah. Like, so that's my point. I'm like, obviously I think there's going to be some of these jobs that get replaced where guys are just kind of hustling between 2 points, you know, those kind of day jobs, if you will.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are talking about is like final mile.
But like getting out here and doing the crazy stuff, I mean, there might come a day that they can make a computer and a camera system that can do it, but they don't have it today.
I mean, but what happens when that thing breaks down in the middle of South Dakota? Who's going to go out there and fix it? Like,
I run wide single tires on some of my tractors because I love just the technology of it. And I mean, everyone's got their opinion on them, but I've been using them for 15 years, love them. But you would be surprised how hard it is to find a wide single tire in the middle of somewhere. Now, that's just a fucking tire. Imagine if that topic just got brought up about electronic trucks. There's no technicians for them. So what happens when you get out in the middle of nowhere? Like, you have to tow it 500 miles back to, you know, California or Texas or somewhere where there's a technician, and it could be just a connection that needs to be redone or something stupid.
Well,
one of those batteries goes out, like you're fucked. You can't do anything. And then we did a news segment the other day. Let's talk about charging those things. Okay, they're not going to be able to run heavy, you know. And if they get, you know, to a point where they're having to run up a hill in the Rockies, like, that's going to drain their whole battery like that. You know, out in California, the Tesla charging ports, these thieves, crackheads are out there that are clipping the charging cables just to steal the copper out of them. So, like,
why didn't somebody think of that sooner? By the way, why is that just now happening? All that precious copper. Who didn't think of this beforehand?
I don't know. It's interesting though. It's in San Francisco of all places, and I love it because they don't know what to do. They're freaking out. Like,
yeah, right.
I want to roll off of what y'all were saying about the servicing them. You know, that is an unfortunate part of our society today, where we're at with innovation as fast as we can. Oh, this is a good idea. Let's get it to market. No one hardly ever thinks anymore about beyond the fucking idea that they have. Oh, dude, it's great. We can make all the autonomous vehicles we want. But now we've also got to be able to find a place that's going to manufacture all those parts in mass. We've got to retrain an entire industry of service technicians or train an entire new genre of technicians to be able to deal with it. Then we've got to build the service. Like, it's like, oh, it sounds good. And you company that is running these things, you have all of that in place because you're doing it right now, but the industry does not. And that's a big problem. I see with it, including with the EV thing. Hunter, I'm so glad you brought that up. I watched an Instagram video today of a guy who broke down how fucking stupid EVs are. Not even trashing them for the technology. He simply used time in transit to defeat the entire EV thing. Time in transit. That's what he used, man. And it's basically oh man, it goes 250 miles and it's got to sit for 30 minutes in charge. He's like, if you make a cross country run, you're going to add a day to a day and a half for that freight to get there, and he's like, and who's going to pay that extra cost? The manufacturer, and then the customer, and then the truck, and the company's got to pay the driver more. And it's like,
my favorite though is people that are using gas powered generators and putting them in their trucks so they can charge on the road.
Yeah. So it's something like they just don't think past the point of their miraculous idea. So.
Well, EVs are a great idea.
They're in too deep. Let's just enjoy it while we can.
Right. Like Mac, they do a garbage truck that's all electronic, an EV truck.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's a great idea because of all the stopping and starting. But even they have an app that they have, like, let's say you're a municipality and you want to, maybe EV is for you. You want a nice, quiet truck. Even the hydraulics run off electronics. So it's just all, it's whisper quiet. It's an amazing truck. That LR is just, you couldn't be more impressed with a piece of equipment, right? But they'll have a company download that app onto their phone and they'll have the driver do their route. And they'll tell you whether or not that EV truck will be better than a diesel powered one for efficiency in the end, because it's not for everybody. Like, you might just have too long of a route. You don't stop enough, or, it's too far from the drop point, to the dump yard. You know what I mean? So they're coming at it kind of smart, knowing that this isn't for everybody. This is just for certain people. Even with their new little truck, their little MD E, same way. That thing is not designed for over-the-road people. Like, that thing is designed for people that just run around town. Maybe they throw on 20, 30 miles in the day because it doesn't have a big enough battery. And if you put a big enough battery on it, well, now you don't want it because it's too heavy.
I'm as much as I am anti-EV all around, and mine goes way deeper than just charging stuff, because I know where all these minerals and all this shit comes from and the people that are hurt by that. And I also know that the disposal of these things is at par, if not sometimes over that of nuclear waste. So mine's a little more, but I do see that, if it's something we're going to implement, the United States Post Office, they're actually about to roll out EVs for postal routes. Great fucking idea. Even where I live, we have 3 post offices here. So that truck could be anywhere in our city and be no more than 10 minutes from a charging station at another terminal, and they could easily transfer over and get a fresh truck if that's what they happen to do. And the trash trucks, things like that, I'm with you. I agree. And it does have its place, and I could also see how it could benefit the fossil fuel industry. Even though I don't care what anyone says, we'll never run out of fossil fuel. That's just not how it works. We are using more than we've ever used. Every year, our consumption of fossil fuel climbs, although we have all this great, life-saving alternative energy. But we could use that savings, if we start pumping less of it, we can implement it in other places and use it in other things. And, we could save down on some of the damage we do to Mother Earth. Because I will say I am a proponent of saving this planet. Humans have destroyed it. So I am anything that can help sustain our planet in a smart, intelligent way. But I just like with autonomous trucks, we're just not there yet, man. We're not there yet. We will be, but I just think we're pushing things. You know what happens when you push things too fast? You make mistakes, and the outcome is not what you intended it to be. And you're always going back to the starting line. When if you just, as they say, slow and steady wins the race.
Disc brakes and ABS systems on trucks and trailers were a horrible idea in the 80s. They failed miserably.
Really?
They pushed too soon. They were horrible. They did not work. Now, nobody thinks of that. Nobody thinks of that now. 30 years later, they're reliable. They work great. but that's just it. It took how many years to get there, and to mandate it's just ridiculous, in my opinion. It just, to force this upon people, it's gonna put people out of business. What it's gonna do, people that have to adopt it, and the technology isn't there, or the power. Like, everyone forgets about the power demand. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and we could use you, Jamie, as an example. Our good friend TJ, I'm pretty sure Jamie knows TJ.
Yep.
Did a live where he called some dealerships, asking for truck prices, and then he even posted an ad in the truck paper, posted an ad there for a brand new Kenworth EV was like $450 million. That same exact truck, same model, same cab, every freaking thing, or damn near, as a diesel is like 150, 175, whatever, for that same exact truck. And, and everyone's like, oh, well, you get tax breaks on it. Well, that's fine. But Jamie still first has to find $470,000 to buy the fucking thing, and then, if you do finance it, well, great. My truck payment for my $100,000 truck is $2,000 a month. Now I've just quadrupled that, so like now Jamie has to find a way to make that money. Who's going to pay that? The broker. And who's going to pay the broker? The shipper. And then you know what I mean? Again, it's like, we're not thinking past what is right in front of our eyes. We're staring at the door, opening it, not realizing there's another hallway with 15 other doors on the other side of that door.
And you look at modern diesel engines, how clean they are. Like, part of me is just like, why are we trying to do this? Like you said, just even the mining of the minerals that it takes to do this. Like, people get into their panties in a bunch over diamonds that were, some poor kid had to mine, and I'm like, so they started, labeling these diamonds were not, sourced, through child labor or whatever it was, And I remember hearing that, and there was all this, Hollywood uproar, and diamonds, who needs that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just something to look at. Now, the trucks and cars, very important in this, in North America, because we're such a large country. We need this kind of stuff. And people don't stop, like, nobody wants to talk about this. You know what I mean? We see the videos, we see the pictures, we see the damage it takes to just get these raw minerals out of the ground. And it gets a guy kind of a little upset when you think about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and just the infrastructure. Nobody wants to talk about nuclear energy, like the energy demand it takes even to come up with this stuff. So what's going to happen is, you and me as homeowners, when all these things come online and electricity starts to become in demand, and they start doing brownouts and blackouts because the EVs are sucking so much power from the grid. I don't know about you. You take my electricity away in my home, and I'm going to start getting pissed. I'm going to get a little unruly. Yeah. I might start lighting some EVs on fire. I didn't say that out loud. That's
we'll just bleep that.
And the point you made about the diamonds is the minerals and stuff for this as bad, if not 10 times as worse, because it's like the diamond or the gold rush, the diamond rush all over again. And coincidentally, just like diamonds, all of these minerals are in countries that do not have child labor laws. And even here, they want to build some here, but the only way they're going to be able to build it is if they make local farmers. Oh, and our country is just so graciously again going to take sacred land from fucking Native Americans so they can dig their mine. You know what I mean? But here's the other thing, and I want to use a city in my state as an example. Austin, Texas. They banned plastic bags, man, and paper bags in most places. First started out, we're not using plastic bags because they're bad for the environment. We're going to use paper. Like, for one, there shows your fucking level of lunacy right there. But then they completely did away with all of it. So you have to bring your own bags, right? But boy, you can find EV chargers everywhere. It's like, okay, you care about the environment when it comes to how you move your groceries from the store to your vehicle, but all of that goes away as long as you get in your vehicle and you feel good because you're not going to a gas station once you turn it on. You know what I mean? It's like the stupidity, Jamie, is fucking mind-boggling, man.
You know what I love about it is that we all talk about it. Everyone, I mean, it's all over X all the time, because you can actually have free thought on that one. But it's all over there, and we all talk about it. We all know about it. We all, there's nothing being hidden about it, but we all just kind of keep going with it. Or at least the businesses do, or the government seems to just keep pushing along like, well, okay, whatever. And we just keep voting the same a-holes in, and they just kind of keep pushing it like it's no big deal. And it's so odd to me. I just never seen anything like it. But like they say, there's money to be made in changing things. So I'm sure a lot of these politicians get a little kickback, from the company that's making these EVs, and and we're, as the taxpayers, pay for it. That $500,000 truck, let's say, and they're getting a $450,000 tax break, so it only cost them $50,000 to own the damn thing. But we paid for that. You know what I mean? As taxpayers, we paid for that. I would rather spend that $450,000 on a road, or a fucking bike path of all the things. Everyone talks about bike paths, but me and my kids just went on a bike ride earlier today in Toledo here, running around on a bike trail, having a great time. But I'd rather, if we're going to throw it away, let's throw it away on that instead of incentives for, an EV truck that is literally going to be worthless in 5 years. Think about that. In 5 years, that battery will need to be replaced. Nobody's going to want to replace that battery, because I'm sure that battery is going to be $150,000, $200,000. Well, it's garbage.
Well, I think they're $20,000, 30,000 for just a Tesla car. Just a car, they're like 30 grand. Yeah.
That's insane.
You ever tried buying a used Prius? Of all things? So the Prius and the Corolla are very similar cars, right? Except one is a hybrid. The Prius sells for like $15,000, $2,000, something like that, more because of the battery. So cut to, let's say, 8 years later, which is the life cycle of that battery. Toyota doesn't hide that at all. Like, that life cycle of that battery is 8 years. If you get 8 years, it could be less. You'll find those things on a dealer lot for pennies on the dollar, because if that battery needs to be replaced, you're spending $8,000 to $10,000 for that battery. So it makes the car worthless. Who wants to buy a used car that you got to dump that kind of money? And that's the point of the used car, is for it to be cheaper, So what's going to happen with these trucks? I don't think anybody's even cares about that. Nobody really talks about these things on the used market and how now they'll have to be recycled, right? If your big thing is the environment, what are we going to do with these trucks? You know what I mean?
Because it makes, I say have been saying the same thing about these for a long time, is it makes people feel good, man. That and the American consumer now we're the most ignorant consumers on the planet.
Right?
We buy and believe everything that we're told, as long as it's a group of people telling us that we need it.
Marketing
is what it is, fucking hook, line, and sinker, baby. I mean, we just jump right in the boat out of the river. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know bait or anything, and that's it. And because they say, oh, it's no big deal, it's no big problem, we've got it all figured out, people just believe them now. And I can't even say it's a generational thing, because you see all kinds of age people driving EVs and doing all kinds of things to save the planet. And it's like, hey, I got to the point where I feel good about making the purchase. I don't see anything wrong, because all of my questions I feel have been answered. But it's like, man, if you just spend another 15 minutes going down that rabbit hole, or maybe gone to one other, type of journalism site or print journalist or whatever, you probably would have came to a different conclusion. And it's just, and unfortunately, the people selling us everything, whether it be an EV or a new law from the government, we just all buy it, because again, we don't care enough anymore and think that we need to do any research into stuff. And they've got us. They know they do. It's easy sell, man.
You got that right. I get passionate about this stuff. I get upset because I got young kids, and I don't know what, I remember my parents kind of being, asked up, and things have changed so much, over these last 30 years, to being in trucking. We went from mechanical engines to electronic engines to having, emissions controls on trucks. and now we're trying to force a technology that is not ready. No one's got a repurposing thought to it. Like, what do we do with these things after they've been used? Who would want them? How do we dispose of them? Like, how do you dispose of a battery pack that's the size of a house? You know what I mean? These truck batteries are massive, dudes. Like, they are literally the size of the cars we used to drive when we were kids. I mean, these things are huge. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that thing when it's worthless? Like, what's the environmental impact of that?
Oh man, we're gonna make
bury them in the desert.
We're gonna make them into children's playgrounds. They're completely harmless. What are you talking about, man?
We're gonna get some of these kids radioactive. See if one of them can't become Spider-Man.
Yeah. Oh man, it's yeah. The stupidity is real, man. It is. And it's unfortunate. I will say this, that that the rest of the country is pretty much, or the rest of the world has almost figured this out. Like, EV trucks and stuff are a thing over in Europe for some of it, but most of it's only final mile, because again, they know the geographical differences there, the consistent stopping and starting, because traffic is a major, major issue in Europe, that they're just not feasible across the board. They're used in small instances, small places, and even cars. Like the cars over there, the industry's huge over there. And even though they don't have the recycling thing figured out, they've got it figured out that there has to be a balance here, for the most part. However, I will say China's got that whole EV system shit. Boy, they've got that thing on lock down over there. Where they're disposing of it, I don't know, but I saw a thing on there. Their infrastructure is already made for it. Like, they upgraded their power grid years ago, knowing that this was the direction they were going. Like, you can go to charging stations or like gas stations over there, man. Like, they're everywhere. So, but yeah, America, we jump in. We don't do the toe first. Just like you said, Jamie, we just boop, right off the high dive, baby.
Yeah, more than likely, our conversation here today is probably worthless. No one's going to hear this in the sense like they're going to do anything about it. They'll hear it and they'll be like, oh, okay, listen to these three dipshits talking about EVs. EVs are just going to keep going along. The government's just going to keep pumping money. Even if Trump gets in, at this point, there's probably so much money involved in it that nobody wants to turn around. Like, they just want to keep pumping money after money and keep getting their kickbacks. And, that's how politics works, isn't it? I mean, let's just say Mr. Trump gets in the office and he's like, this is a crazy idea, but then some of the senators and Congress people will get around and be like, yeah, we're going to help you, do your thing, but we're getting ridiculously rich on the backside of this. So if you could just not stop that would be great. But we'll help you do what you want. See, so there's always this handshaking, going on in the back, and it's just how politics is. And us as Americans just sit here and smile and just nod our heads and just be like, "Yep, we're fucked." I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, no matter who we vote for, right? Like,
Jamie, he just gave me the greatest idea for a meme for EVs. I got to finish thinking it out, but it's going to be the fucking guy from Office Space. You just said it. I was like, that would be great. I'm so going to make a meme with that guy now about EVs. Like, if you could not cut off our illegal kickbacks, that would be great.
Right?
Dude, I did not expect this conversation to go this way. I loved it though. This was really, really invigorating. I love talking about EVs, autonomous vehicles, all that stuff. I mean, all I ever do is trash them because that's what they are, is fucking trash. But everyone has a different perspective on it, and everyone, even if we feel the same way about it, like all three of us do, we've all got additional, thoughts to like, I didn't think about that could be an issue with this, or that's a really good alternative. And Jamie, you brought up several things that I hadn't thought about, man. And this, who knows where this crap's going to go? I don't think it'll be. I don't know. Right now, I think it's a fad. I watched something a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, but someone compared the EV in industry to the new military industrial complex. They like the guy, he ran numbers and everything, and it is unbelievable the almost trillions of dollars a year just from America that gets pushed into this shit. And I mean, dang near close to $1 trillion a year in private funding, government kickbacks, tax breaks. I mean, it is right there below the fucking military industrial complex. It's
Green
great.
New Deal.
Yeah. And the guy said
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts, man. Nuts. And his point was, he's like, he even made timelines. He's like, look, he's like, this really started becoming a thing once the wars overseas were really talked about being brought down, which, was under President Obama. That's when this really was started, hey, we're going to wind this down. We're going to wind this down. And then that's when this stuff really started coming forefront. And he made the comparison. He's like, it's like we started moving our money from the military industrial complex and we just found somewhere else to go throw it away. And that's exactly what it is, And so, yeah, it's
accurate description about throwing it away, though.
Huh?
Accurate description on the throwing it away, though.
It is, man. We throw it in, you throw it around everything, all this alternative energy stuff. It's all great, but and again, I'm for it because as someone who lives on this planet and hopes that humans inhabit this planet for another several 100,000 years, if you're like me and you pay attention and you watch a lot of documentaries, you read a lot of print and stuff, we've done the damage. The damage is done. There is no going back. The people who really know and that are being silenced have said it. There is no going back. We needed to stop this shit 40, 50, 60 years ago to even, start reversing it. Now, the only thing we can do is just mitigate and try to extend the amount of time that the human species is going to be able to live, on this planet. And so, I'm all for it, but none of them work. Even solar, man, same thing. Those panels are only good for so long. So, someone else brought up, man, what's it cost for a field, one of these fields of solar panels? Several millions of dollars, millions and millions. So every 10 years, you've got to go out there, replace every single one of those panels. You have to hire people to take care of those fields because they have to be maintained, Connections have to be checked, things rust and all that stuff. And it's like, again, it's all great on the surface, but what is it really doing in the end? What is the true long-term cost of this? And I just really don't think, besides maybe nuclear, that we have figured out a real good alternative energy or geothermal. But, you've got to live in really the right place for geothermal to work. Iceland is an incredible example of that. Their entire country's ran on geothermal energy, actually.
Well, that's what happens when you got some volcanoes in your backyard, right?
Yeah, exactly. I love. Hey, but before we get out, why the moniker down there? I mean, does that have any real world application, or is it just something you say because you get good truck fuel mileage in your trucks?
Well, yeah. I mean, this all pulls it together, right? Not only is fuel efficiency about saving money in your business, but guys, the less fuel you burn, the less emissions you create. The less you put in the air, the less DEF I have to use. All those things tie together. The less maintenance my truck has to use. They all tie together. Not only is it good for business, it's good for the environment. It's good for humanity. There's all these different things. That's why I'm saying, like, why? I mean, and I don't think we should mandate anything. As far as I'm concerned, the government needs to get the hell out of all of it. But, that's just my libertarian view. I think that we should focus more on trying to get trucks more efficient with diesel. I mean, like, let's make things even more efficient. Let's get really into it. And don't incentivize it. Just make it advantageous for people to be smart business people. Maybe hire some schooling for these guys on math or something. I don't fucking know. Like, half these guys don't seem to be really good at math, Peterbilt owners. But it's it's just something I strive for. Is, I see the world that I want to leave for my kids. You know what I mean? Or, it's very cliche. Everyone says, I want to leave a world for my kids, but it's true. I mean, we are only here on this planet for a brief second, and then we move on to the next generation. And we can look back at these guys in the 60s and 70s that were just dumping shit into the rivers and polluting them and all this weird stuff. And I'm like, you really didn't care like who was coming behind you? And you know what I mean? Like, so that's why, you know, I just got a passion for fuel efficiency. It kind of stems from being broke, you know, as a kid. You know, you're cruising around in your little car, and you know, I'm just trying to make that $20 bill go as far as I could, you know. So that's where it kind of came from. But I see all these benefits now as an older person, you know, a guy who can track this kind of stuff and do the math on it. It just makes sense. Like, that's, to me, when you look at EVs and all this other stuff, and you look at my truck and you look at total cost of ownership, what word is that? Total cost of ownership. These EVs that cost $450,000 that are worthless, and they're going to cost you money to get rid of when you're done with them. Like, you're probably going to have to pay somebody to take this thing when it's done. You know, you don't get any resale value out of it because it's a chemical hazard when it's done. So what does that thing cost you in the end? Like, you thought it saved, but what did it cost? So that's, I mean, you know, you gave me the right to put anything I wanted in there. So I try to be obnoxious as possible with my fuel efficiency because it catches people's eye. You know, I'm the chief fuel efficiency master. What does that even mean? I'm just a dipshit who likes to not use the throttle when he drives.
Well, what are some of your tips besides the throttle? I was a big cruise control guy myself, but what are some of the tips that you have? You know, is it maintenance? Is it a certain type of fuel and tires? You know,
here's a good tip, or even what we were talking about earlier about autonomous. The computer and the fuel efficiency on cruise control, it used to be the way to go. They'd say to drivers, you know, just set the cruise and let the cruise control do it because it's better than your foot. That can be, with the wrong driver or the right driver, if you will, can be accurate. You know, if you're really bad at throttle, the cruise control probably works. But I don't run with cruise control on much. You want to roll down a hill. You want to keep your inertia as you go up a hill. So you're throttling up as you come up to the hill. And then you start to back out as you go up the hill, as you try to crest it. You're not using full power. You're almost just kind of cresting it with almost no power, and then you use the momentum going back down. But that only works when you're, you know, traveling in hills. You know, when you're flat ground, you're trying to just idle down as much as possible. You know, like when it comes to me getting off the interstate, I probably drive a lot of people nuts because about a mile out, I'm off the throttle coasting. Now, I do a lot of things with my trucks to make them not only aerodynamic, so the air doesn't push against them so they roll freely, but I do a lot of stuff mechanically, you know, your fuel efficient tires, you know, your low rolling resistant tires. But you can also do a thing most people don't know about this, where you can set the preload on your hubs. You know, when they put your hub together at the factory, they just slam in what they call a crush cone. So there's a machine or a robot that just comes along and just sets that to a certain pressure, and they call it good. That pressure can be really good or it can be really bad because it's a computer and it doesn't, you know what I mean? It just hits a thing, boom, moves on to the next one. And it's just their way of mass producing hubs, right? But you can come in with a system called Dr. Preload where they can actually dial in the exact pressure you want. So if you were to jack up a truck or a trailer axle and you were to spin that wheel assembly, sometimes you spin it and it just goes and it stops. So there's a lot of mechanical resistance in that system against those hubs. You do the Dr. Preload system and it's like spinning the wheel of fortune. It just goes around and around and around. So it's really free. So with my trucks, as soon as you let off the throttle, the thing will just roll. Like it's, you know, like most trucks, you let off the throttle, it feels like you put on the brakes, right? Like between the weight and the air pressure from, you know, aerodynamics, everything, that thing feels like you put on the brakes. Mine just rolls. So that makes all the difference in the world. There's these little tiny tips and things a guy can do, and that doesn't cost a lot of money. We use a higher or lower viscosity axle hub. Grease Spicer makes this fluid that's like 75, 90. It's really low viscosity. Like, so it's like water. And you put that in your gears, and then so now you don't have that churn within your gears. So all that stuff just reduces mechanical resistance all the way around, even in the engine. Like, it's crazy how better we can make these. And then we're just literally touching the surface of what we really could do if we poured our efforts into it. You know, you see some of these super trucks that they build, you know, the government gives, you know, Volvo and International and Peterbilt, you know, $10 million. And they're like, build us a super truck. And everyone stands back and stares at it and goes, yep. But do you ever see any of that stuff kind of like make its way into the system? Little here, little there, but not much. Hopefully someday something comes of it. But like I said, I feel like instead of pushing EVs, we should be pushing, you know, more fuel efficient trucks, you know, just keeping that kind of going. You know, we could do so much more with it, or even bigger trucks. Like we could start pulling doubles or 60-foot trailers, adding more axles, using ton mile per gallon. You know, that's what the railroad industry uses. You know, nobody talks about the, you know, 80 million gallons of fuel they need to go over a mountain. Well, when you're pulling, you know, 2 million pounds over the mountain, when you look at the ton mile per gallon of a train, it's so much more efficient than a truck. Like that is the most efficient way to move stuff, is by rail. I hate to say it, but it is. And there again, it's a hybrid. It's a diesel generated electronic motor because electronic motors are more efficient. So it makes sense. And why we use that more and more, like start gravitating towards that, taking trucks off the road, because if you're using more weight in a truck, it just takes another truck off the road. Now everyone panics about that, but it's more efficient in the long run. Like that is, you didn't have to build as much infrastructure for it. It's shrinking it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that makes sense to me, you know, but then again, why would we want to do that? No one's paying us, you know, no one's paying politicians money to push that idea, right? Like, so yeah.
Fucking A. I like it, man. I do. You're right up my alley, man. Like you, I like how you geek out on what you do, and I can appreciate that. I geek out on fucking everything because I just think the world's an interesting place. Everything is interesting, you know. There's nothing is what you see at face value. You know, I mean, my bottle opener here, yeah, it's a little piece of steel with some rubber on it. You know what I mean? But you know, what did it take to build that? What does the machine look like that it took? Where did the metal come from? You know, like it's cool to geek out on where you're at, man, and try to master as close as you can to mastering what you're doing. And I think especially in our industry, to make things more efficient, you know, whether it be your workload or the amount of diesel that you consume, or how many hours that your drivers are wasting on the road, or, you know, even keystrokes for a broker on a keyboard. You know, if you can automate something where it's click, click, you know, all the much better. And so I can definitely appreciate your mastery of operational efficiency.
What do you got, Hunter?
Present. No. No, I was just waiting.
Like, hell yeah. No, guys, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Like I'm just one of those. I grow up very poor, so I look at places where you can save money and things that make sense. You know what I mean? Like, why spend $1,000 to save $5? But in our government, that's what we do. You know what I mean? Like we spend $1,000 to save a nickel, and it's crazy to me. Like,
did you ever have you seen? There's a video of a guy giving a talk, and he's comparing California and Texas. And what it is the California governor was out walking his dog, and a coyote came up and it bit the dog. And he goes through all these costs. He's like, the governor, you know, has to call up the animal control. The animal control comes out there, and then they have to do testing about was there, you know, any rabies or any of that stuff, you know, and then they have to bring some conservationist person out there to see, you know, if the fox population went through all of these things, all these numbers, and he goes, the governor of Texas was out walking his dog. Coyote came up, bit his dog. Governor of Texas pulled out his gun, shot that coyote dead. $5 on a round of ammunition. Like it was.
Christy, no, my governor would have done the same thing. Just shoot the dog.
I was like, dude, that is just like, and it was the fucking greatest comparison ever. You know, it's like, that's so true. Like, you know, like sometimes the real solution is the easiest, most forward one that is right there in front of you. And Hunter says this to me, my wife says all the time, we overthink shit. You know what I mean? Because we're all like, oh man, it can't be that easy. You know what I mean? There's no way it's that fucking simple, you know? And so, yeah, but yeah, I'm going to find that video so you can watch it exactly, Jamie. That shit was so funny. It's like 2 minutes long because now that I've told you, you'll expect it. But when you're watching it, you think it's going to tell us something else. And he goes, Governor shoots it, boom, $5 on one round of ammunition. Like, like, oh my God, it was so great, man. Anyway, but I'm done. I don't have anything else, Hunter, unless you do.
No, I'm good, man. Jamie, thanks for coming on, dude. Like, this was one of the best conversations we've had in a long time, dude. So the passions, you know, we respect that. We like that around here.
I agree. This was you know, this was a great Sunday afternoon chat. That's what this was. It was just a great chat, man. And yeah, Jamie, thanks for chilling with us. Hunter, you ready to do this final sponsor love and chop out this piece?
Let's do it.
Let's get her done then. Only thing you can really say about Shoreline, well, I'm gonna say the only thing. One of the only things you could say about Shoreline is it's a sure thing. Today on the show, we talked about new things, not always in a positive way, but this one is positive. Something that is going to be the wave of the future in our industry, I feel, is actual GPS tracking, spinning everything else forever and a day, yet it has not been interested in logistics at the level that it needs to be. We want to start curtailing fraud and freight theft. This is one of the tools that we're going to need to get it done. Everybody, G-Go. Man, you know, the funny thing about this, and we'll edit this out too, is it's probably gonna take us like 4 hours to edit this hour and 18-minute show.
You're not kidding.
Oh man, it's gonna be so great. Jamie, we do appreciate you being the first one on our recorded show, man, and kind of going along with it. If you go watch our live stuff, it goes a hell of a lot smoother. It's just, I don't know. From our standpoint, it's so weird because we usually have comments and people texting us and like interacting throughout everything. So normally this probably would have been an hour and 45 minutes, and it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of awkward. Don't you agree, Hunter?
Yeah, it's just different. Doesn't have the same feel, but you know, we'll get used to it eventually.
All right, well, we'll edit that out. And 3-second pause for the edit. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of the Logistics Lounge. We hope that you will be back for the next episode. As always, we're going to continue to bring exciting, invigorating, informative, and thought-provoking content. Jamie, we appreciate you joining us again, and we hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their Sunday afternoon. As I always say, chunk them deuces. Mr. Hound, roll that beautiful beam footage. Footage. He froze. I'll roll the footage.